Hello everyone, welcome to Dragon Hoard, where we like to hoard books, read romantasy, and discuss magic systems, all while analyzing our favorite read. And today we're going to take a look at our third installment of the Sarah J. Maas series, Throne of Glass, and that is Heir by Sarah J. Maas. So a quick little introduction to how this channel works. On my channel, I usually have a very set system on how I review my books, so usually it follows a specific order. Usually it's intro, then I'll do a cover review, and I'll talk about the design elements that are a part of the covers of the book, so that way we can look at things like colors and themes and motifs, things like that. But after the cover review, then I'll usually do a synopsis. I can either be a brief synopsis or a longer synopsis, my thoughts and opinions, maybe some highlights. Then we'll hit things like the magic system, if I want to continue the series, if I would recommend this series, who would I recommend this series to. All of those kind of go together right there. And then I'll give you some similar reads in case you're just looking for like similar vibes but you don't want to read this specific series, you want something else, then I'll try to match it with something else I've read in the past. So that's the formatting that my videos follow. If for some reason you get bored with a cover review or something, feel free to jump to whatever interests you that you might want to know, the synopsis, thoughts and opinions, just whatever. I will have everything timestamped below, and I will try to put where most of the spoilers begin. Alright, so let's get into it. Today we're going to start with our cover review. Instead of holding the book up, I'm just going to add another one on the screen somewhere around here, and then we'll look at it from there. I will say, out of the 8 books in the Throne of Glass series, this Heir of Fire cover is my actual favorite as far as the standard edition copies go. I mentioned in previous review that my favorite special edition is by Acrylopix. It is their Legacy edition. I will add them down below as well in case you want to take a look at it and see what I'm talking about. I believe they're gorgeous. This is non-sponsored, by the way, but I do love their books. I love their special editions. I think they're very unique and they're beautiful. So here on the cover of Heir of Fire, we do have some muted tones. It follows more along the lines of oranges and deep greens. This makes me think of a really fall season themed. In our background, we have a lake and some trees. We do have darker trees on both sides. That really draws us into the center portion of this cover, which is where the title is in like a very light green. But above the title itself, we do have the silhouette of what is a hawk, and it's also done in that darker, deep pine green color. And below the title, we have another image that you would think is the reflection of the hawk on the water surface. But if you really look at it, you'll notice that it is not, in fact, anywhere near hawk shape. And if you look at it closely, you'll realize this looks more like a dragon. It doesn't even look like a hawk. Yeah, that's because it is a wyvern, however you say it, I don't know. A wyvern, wyvern, whatever it is. It is part of the dragon family, but it is not a dragon. There's differences. Anyways, we have a wyvern on the cover. He's also done in deep green, so I really like how this balances out parts of the book because we're following multiple POVs in these books. From there, we do have the author's name up above the title of the book, and it's just done in bright white lettering. It's just a little bit smaller than the title itself. I'm not a big fan of that. I prefer to be able to see more of the title of the book than the author's name, but whatever. And as I just said, I'm not a particular fan of these covers, but since this is my favorite cover out of these standard edition paperbacks, I did give this cover a 3 out of 5 stars. Just the cover, not the book itself. A 3 out of 5 stars, so it was pretty solid for me. It's okay. I like it. I like the color palette used for this. That gave it bonus points. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and jump into our synopsis where we are following Selena. We start off with Selena, and Selena is now in Wendlin thanks to Captain Westfall, Kel, and his bright idea to send her to Wendlin to protect her because of what we found out in book 2. If you're curious, you can check out my review on Crown of Midnight here on my channel. I mention it at the closer to the end of my review portion, or you can read the series. It's up to you. Whatever floats your boat, whatever makes you happy. But I do have it in there. So because of what happened in book 2, Selena has been sent to Wendlin, and while she's here, she went in, she was all like hyped up. She's like, yes, I'm going to do this mission. I want to get what I need, and I'm going home. Okay, Selena. And once she got started and she actually laid eyes on a very distant relative of hers, she actually falls into a deep depression because of everything that happened to her and she experienced in book 2. We have a visitor. Oh, it's my sister's cat. Okay, I guess he's going to hang out with us. So, as I was saying, once she gets here, she just falls into the biggest depression ever. And she has been spending her time on rooftops. She's drinking herself into a stupor. She's eating what's mentioned in this book as being tegya, which is a type of flatbread, and that's all she's doing. She's drinking and eating bread, and that's it. At one point, there is a Hulk that comes and just sits on a rooftop with her and judges her, but she doesn't even care. She's just like, whatever, stupid bird. And then comes the day that she decides to finally get off of the roofs because she's out of wine, she's out of Tegget. So she decides, you know what, I'm going to go either find something to drink or I'm going to find something to eat. Either of the two works for me. I don't really care which one it is. Once she gets down on the ground, she falls into an even harder low because there's a point where another vagrant of the streets starts making a ruckus because she mistakes Selena for being another vagrant on the streets. Due to this, when this happens, Selena's just like, dang, that is a new low for me. Would you like to say something? This is mine. No. Shouldn't have done that, I guess. Oh, come back here, cat. But once that happens, and Selena's like, wow, I feel absolutely pathetic and awful with myself, she notices something even worse. She notices a very angry, very large female that is just stalking towards her, just like strutting his stuff. And Selena, for once, we see that Selena is actually terrified. And this is because Selena knows she stands zero chances against this female in a fight. She knows he's older than her. She knows that he has his Fae abilities. She does not. She is currently still in her human form. She hasn't taken her Fae form. So she is at a disadvantage right now. Now, this is where our introduction to Heir of Fire ends. Selena has no other choice but to join this female on a journey up into the mountains of Wendland, where she is reconnected with her long-lost aunt, Queen Maeve of the Fae. And once they meet within a keep in the mountains known as Mistward, Maeve gives Selena an option. She gives Selena the option to either embrace her abilities and train them so that she can show Maeve what she can actually do with her magic, or she can just decide not to do that, but she also won't get her answers. If she trains her magic and shows them to Maeve, then Maeve is going to give her the answer that she wants, or the answers that she needs concerning the weird keys. Selena really doesn't want to do this. She doesn't want to train her magic, but she knows if she wants answers, then she has to do it. And she made a promise to Princess Nehemia. And that is a promise she cannot break because she actually swore a blood oath. Moving on, because of that, she says, okay, fine, I will stay and train my abilities until you deem me worthy enough to see you in Doranel, in your capital, castle, whatever. And I give you what you want, you give me what I want, and that's all we'll have to do with each other. So now Selena is stuck with Fluffbutt Rowan, and Maeve leaves. And thus begins Selena's self-discovery and training arc that is Heir of Fire. This is essentially just a training arc about Selena coming into her Fae powers and her Fae abilities. It definitely isn't easy for Selena, but of course Selena also hasn't had an easy life at any point in time. So is this anything new for her? Not really. Does it suck? Absolutely. And the first roadblock that Selena encounters is the fact that she actually cannot shift into her Fae form. That is the first step into training her powers, and she can't do it for the life of her. She's trying and nothing is working. Threats don't work. Getting the crap beat out of her doesn't work. Fighting, nothing is working. There is no way that she is able to push herself to shift. But she's definitely getting stronger. Even if it is her human body that's getting stronger, Selena is much stronger than what she was previously. And she was pretty dang strong. Once she does finally manage to take on her Fae form, then comes the fun of training her fire magic. And fire magic is actually a rare form of magic. While not many Fae have had it, not many have it or have had it in the past. It is a rare ability. It is a difficult ability. So Selena is struggling with that, but you know, it's Selena. I'm not surprised. While this is going on, she is finally being allowed to accompany Rowan around in the surrounding forest, and they are hunting a monster that is provoking a string of murders all around them. So they're trying to find this monster and figure out what it is, why is it killing these people, what's the connection. That's a little underlying plot. All of this is going on simultaneously as we alternate POVs with our new FMC introduced in this book, Manon Blackbeak. She is a Iron Teeth witch and heir to the Blackbeak clan. So a little information about these witches. The witches, they are brutal and they are cruel. They live not only for the hunt, they live also for the kill. So it's not just the thrill of hunting, but also the thrill of killing that drives them and their brutality and their bloodlust. And witches in this book, they're described as not having any emotions because supposedly they don't have a heart. And they're just described as violent and cold and cruel killing machines. That is what the witches are described as being in this installment. And as it turns out, the Iron Teeth witches had some kind of beef with a now almost extinct group of witches known as the Kraken witches. And it's all because something happened between them, and then the queen of the Kraken witches placed a curse on their homeland. So now none of the Iron Teeth witches can return to their homeland or even set foot there because of said curse. And the Kraken witches are known for wearing a bright red cloak or cape. This is where Manon gets her infamous red cape from. Is from her first kill being a Kraken witch who had this cape, and Manon took that cape when she killed her. But something interesting happens because Manon and the 12 witches that are with her, altogether they are known as the 13, they're all out hunting down Kraken witches, trying to get answers on how to remove this curse that is on the witchlands. They are summoned to the Farian Gap. Why are they summoned to the Farian Gap? Because the king of Adarlan decided that he needs none other than witches to be a part of his aerial cavalry. How is there going to be an aerial cavalry, you ask? The king of Adarlan, even though he banished magic everywhere, almost, in his lands anyway, he has been breeding wyverns in the Farian Gap, and now he needs witches that are able to mount these wyverns, ride them into battle. And of course, since magic has been dead for 10 years, the witches haven't been able to mount their brooms and ride them on the wind like they had before, so of course they jump at the chance to be able to fly again. I would too. And this, of course, is the introduction to the flight training arc that Manon and her 12 witches go through in this book. So not only is Selena training, Manon is also in training right now. So while these two arcs are going on, then we have another little arc that is going on in the background, and that is the arc of Aelin's cousin, Aedion Ashriver, and he just so happens to be the king's top general. So that was interesting to read. I was surprised. I was like, wow. Traitor. It makes sense. You gotta read it. You gotta read it. So Aedion comes down from the Fang Mountains, and he is staying at the castle. I don't remember if it's a legion or what it was, or company. I don't remember what they were referred as. Whatever. He comes down. His people are supposed to be following him shortly. But as it so happens, Kill hates Aedion. But Kill doesn't hate Aedion as much as Dorian does, because Aedion was always nasty to Dorian. They met when they were children, and they just don't get along, and with good reason. Alright, so Aedion has come to Rifthold, and he's waiting on his company to arrive. While he's here, Aedion is causing trouble. Aedion is throwing these wild, lavish parties in Rifthold. But while he's doing this, he's also telling the guards, hey, you know what? Kill, Captain Westfall, said it was okay if you came to the party. You can abandon your post and come join the festivities. I'm paying for all of the booze and whatnot. So guards are abandoning their posts. When Kale gets wind of this, he is not happy. So since Kale isn't happy, he's like, all right, you two that I just discovered abandon your post. You're going to be punished. I don't remember exactly what the punishment was, if it was like a month of work with no breaks or double shifts. I don't remember what it was. Anyways, he goes looking for Aedion because he wants to chew him out. But once he gets to the tavern where he was supposed to be at, and he starts asking around to people if they've seen Aedion, they're like, oh yeah, we saw him. He was doing this, or he went with that person. He was drinking over there. Every person he asks tells him something different. But in reality, no one actually knows where Aedion is right in that moment. I had to move a little bit because the sun's trying to blind me. So anyway, Kel decides that this is really fishy behavior for Aedion. So he decides, I'm going to go find him. I'm going to go to his party tomorrow and figure out what he's actually doing. And he does. He goes to the next day's party and he trails Aedion. And because of Aedion's fishy behavior, Kel nearly becomes fish food. Because when he finds him, Kel believes Aedion is loyal to the king completely because he wears that black obsidian ring. And Aedion believes that Kel is completely loyal to the king because, of course, he's the captain of the guard, so why wouldn't he be loyal to the king? So they have their differences, but eventually they come to an understanding with each other. And they decide that what they're going to do is exchange information. And as it turns out, this is a big spoiler, by the way, Aedion hates the king. He hates the king of Adarlan so much. Of course, his whole family was slaughtered by the king of Adarlan and his forces when he was a child, so why wouldn't he? But he hates the king of Adarlan. And Aedion actually isn't that innocent. He is working with, and has been working with, the rebel movement for some time now. And once Kel finds this out, he is now up to his eyeballs. Now, for our final... I've moved again. I know, I'm sorry, guys. Now for our final POV that we rotate with, we are following Dorian, and Dorian has found a new sweetheart, and that sweetheart just so happens to be a healer in the castle. But this healer is who has been healing, taking care of him and Kel and Selena, even Fleetfoot in the last installment, every time they would get hurt, so she's seen some stuff. And Dorian realizes this, and he's like, oh no, this is bad, this is not good. And he starts like asking her, inquiring, he's like, hey, do you guys keep track of everything and whatnot? And she's like, we do, but sometimes us healers, because we're so busy, we forget to write everything down. So she hasn't been writing down these strange occurrences and injuries that Dorian and his friends have been experiencing, which is dangerous for her in and of itself. But Dorian's like, thank God. And because Dorian has become more conscious of people and acknowledging them and realizing that, hey, other people exist, he asks for her name, and her name is Sorsha. Dorian begins by finding small little excuses, scrapes, and whatnot to go visit Sorsha down in her workshop where she makes like tinctures and tonics and those kinds of things. All's well until one day it slips that Dorian has magic. Like he has an accident, a magic accident, and Sorsha sees it. But she promises to keep his secret, and then things just keep snowballing from there as far as a romantic relationship goes for them. It's all secret, of course. Now she's trying to help him find a mixture, a concoction that could actually help him avoid losing control of his magic and outing himself again. So she's trying to help him. And that is the last of our alternating POVs. I would say they probably go in the same order I just went over them, in about the same importance level. Like Dorian and Sorsha's story is cute, but it isn't the most predominant in this book, and it's not really that important until the end. So I know that I did give you a pretty in-depth synopsis on this book. It is over 500 pages long. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of POVs. There's just a lot of moving parts and a lot of stuff going on. So now, since we've gone over that, I would like to give you like little tidbits of some of the things that we see throughout this book other than the main plot lines. I'm just going to read those off for you. It may or may not make sense without the full context, but here we go. We meet Valk Princes. Someone is consumed by darkness, like completely. We find out that it may be possible to restore magic in Adarlan. Someone loses their head. Actually, there's a lot of people that lose their head, literally. Someone else gets collared. Wow. That was surprising. Oh yeah, when people lose their head, apparently the Gestapo is in Adarlan. I don't know. Abraxas, my sweet summer child. Someone else becomes a surprise fugitive. We have another hostage this book. And probably the most important one out of all of these is someone had a harebrained idea to retrieve the weird key because they figured out where it's at. And now they feel stupid. So like I said, there's a lot of moving parts throughout this story, but it's great. And now we know that when we do get to Queen of Shadows after this training arc, that's when we really hit the ground running because everything is set in motion. We have our introduction. We have our characters. Everybody's gone through a training arc, which means they've had personal growth. They've grown stronger. They've gotten new abilities, all of those things. So everything is set up so we can hit the ground running. But before we continue with that train of thought, now I'd like to give you my thoughts and opinions on Heir of Fire. Alright, so in Heir of Fire, I'm just going to do a little bit of comparison of what I did with book 2. In Heir of Fire, I was pleased by the fact that the writing style stayed consistent from book 2 to book 3, and it wasn't such a big gap like book 1 and 2 was. I was pleased that it stayed consistent and it wasn't just like giving me whiplash. The other thing that I was quite pleased with was the fact that, yes, there's romance in book 3, but it's not like the interpersonal relationships between the books were just magically resolved from hatred and loathing to being like, oh, lovey-dovey, yay. No, they actually grew and developed in what I would say was a pretty natural course compared to book 1 to 2. So if that would have happened again in this book, I probably would have thrown something. All right, so the other thing that I want to talk about, the other thing too, is that I was pretty pleased in book 3 because we do actually see that Kel matures. Finally. It's finally happens. Hill actually takes a stand and he's choosing a side that he wants to stand with. He's not just blindly following still. He chooses what side he wants to be on and he knows the consequences. So he has matured and I really like that because that means he doesn't have his head shoved so far up his rear end that his ears are plugged with all the crap that he thinks. You make me mad still. But I'm happy that he has had personal growth and development. Just doesn't have the same attitude as in book 1 and 2. Now, since this was the training arc for basically all of our characters, I was really pleased with everything that went on. There isn't exactly anything that I would want to particularly see or add on to right now, so I was very pleased with that. I believe everything is set up beautifully, and I look forward to getting into our next installment, Queen of Shadows. So for Heir of Fire, I gave it a 4.75 stars out of 5 because I still don't feel like it really hits that 5-star mark. There are parts that I would give it a 5-star, but as a whole, I don't want to give it the actual 5 stars yet. I think that will be Queen of Shadows onward that hits 5 stars. I'm not saying it's a bad book. I'm just saying it doesn't hit like a 5-star read does for me yet, but it's getting there. It just keeps getting better from the beginning. And as far as the spice goes, I'm really only going to give it a 1 chili out of 5 chilies because this book isn't really spicy. I know a lot of romantasy focuses on spice and smut and whatnot. This focuses more on the high fantasy aspect, so our romance and our spice or smut in this book isn't predominant. I think the only time we really see anything at all is Dorian and Sorsha, and they aren't seen in this storyline that often. But even so, I think everything was pretty much a closed door scene if it even occurred. I do know they kissed, and I can't really remember if there was even any mention of smut between them. But yeah, it was like in book 2, it was just a mention in passing closed door scene, if it was even in there. And from here, I would like to jump into some of my highlight moments that I think really help bring everything together, and just some of the moments that made me say, wow. So we're going to go over that real quick. As I was saying, we know that Selena starts out in that major depressive episode. And when she gets off the roof, she's looking for more wine. She's looking for Tegia. And the other vagrant woman believes Selena's a vagrant woman. And Selena has this thought that is so accurate for even real life situations. And that is where she's just thinking, at least she could take some comfort in knowing that it couldn't get worse. But then a deep male voice chuckled from the shadows behind her. And we all know that line of, it couldn't get worse. That just means, hey, it's about to get so much worse. And it did. It really did. But she was made better for it in the end, so oh well. Then another iconic scene that we do have is where we're introduced to Manon. This is on page 32. She's been hunting the Kraken witches, but then these men find out, oh, she's a witch. We need to get rid of her. So they're trying to corner her in the house that she's been living in. And it says, "Come out, little Kraken," he crooned. Silent as death, Manon slid up behind him. The fool didn't even know she was there until she brought her mouth close to his ear and whispered, "Wrong kind of witch." And this is the iconic introduction we have to Manon right before she tears out his throat. So that is Manon. Iconic scene. I love it. Then we have a scene where Selena is in Mist Ward and Rowan's telling her, hey, I need your weapons. Rowan's getting her settled in, supposedly, and he tells her, give me your weapons. Why? And no, like hell she'd give him her daggers. In a swift movement, he grabbed a bucket of water from beside her door and tossed the contents onto the hall floor, holding it out. Give me your weapons. And then Selena does finally cede her weapons to Rowan, and this is where he's getting ready to leave. Then he tucked the bucket against his side and slammed the door without so much as a goodbye. Beyond, be ready at dawn. Bastard. Old stinking bastard, she muttered, surveying the room. So Rowan does really treat Selena like crap. I'm not gonna lie, he does treat her like crap. He thinks she is a spoiled brat and she's had an easy life and she's just being difficult and bratty. And like, why would she choose to become an assassin and all that blood money and whatnot? I can kind of understand why he kind of hates her because he doesn't have the whole story, but still, he's treating her like crap. And then one of the things I really found inspirational about Manon is how she describes her body. And I don't mean this in any sensual type of way or anything like that. No, but it is inspirational because it's like, hey, you should really respect yourself and take care of yourself. It says, page 91, Manon treated her body as she would any other weapon. She kept it clean and honed and ready at any time to defend and destroy. So I really like that because it's just saying, hey, take care of yourself. Keep yourself clean, like you would keep your sword or your dagger clean. Be honed, be ready, but still be clean. And then we do have a little bit from Dorian, and it's talking about Fleetfoot because Fleetfoot ended up staying with Dorian. That's on page 139, and it says, the hound now slept in his bed, of course, and bullied him for scraps and treats to no end. But it was nice to have some piece of his friend while she was gone, so he does miss Selena. And then this is my favorite thing ever for Abraxos. Abraxos is Manon's wyvern. Abraxos is Manon's wyvern. And it's just hilarious because he is the cutest thing. He happened to be a runt. His wings were damaged because they used him as bait for the bigger wyverns. But he's got so much personality. And here it says, Abraxos sniffed at a cluster of purple flowers, then flicked his eyes to her. No meat, he seemed to say. When he went back to sniffing the flowers rather delicately, the insufferable, useless worm, she stalked to the leg of mutton and hauled it up. So this is an exchange between Abraxos and Manon. And I have another one, and it's what Dorian's thinking about Kel, and he tells him because Kel still wants to decide what parts of Selena Aelin he loves. Dorian tells him he cannot pick and choose what parts of her to love. And I think that's just so powerful because we can see that in real life. We can be like, hey, I want to love this and this and this about this person, but I can't love them if they do this, or this is part of their past, whatever, things like that. So I believe that's really powerful in itself because it's telling us, hey, you can love someone, you can love certain things about them, and you can dislike certain things, but you can't choose just those things to love about them. It should be you love the whole person, even if they do have their faults. You can love them, or even if it's not exactly how you want them to be. You're not going to change everything about them. So love them as a whole, and then you had to figure out the rest, or don't love them at all. And then that is where all of my little highlight sections end. We do, of course, have a famous Who Did That to You scene. That I did not actually write down what page that was on. But it is once Rowan, of course, sees the scars that Selena ports on her back from her time at Endovir, among other punishments that she's had to endure throughout her life. Alright, so now we're going to take a quick look at the magic system. The magic system stays the same, pretty much, as it did in the previous two books. So that means Adarlan still doesn't have any magic except for Dorian. For some reason, Dorian can use magic. We don't know why yet, but we know he can use magic. He has raw magic, which is the purest form of magic, and he can make it do whatever he wants. Okay, it is pliable, it is for the molding and doing whatever you want to do with it. As Dorian's magic, that's only magic in Adarlan. Everything else, just count it as dead. Then we go to Wendelin, and in Wendelin we can see magic is more prevalent, of course. We have all of the Fae. We learn that the Fae, they have their pointed teeth, they have the pointy ears, they have their magical abilities, and they also have increased physical abilities compared to human. Because of this, in Wendelin, since they can use their magic, we learn that the magic of the Fae includes two things. Those two things are all Fae can shapeshift into some other form. So most of them have an animal form, whereas Selena, her shifted form is actually a human form, so that's interesting. Most other Fae, their forms tend to be some kind of animal. So like Rowan, he's a hawk, and then one of his cadre from Maeve's top guards, whatever they are. I think there's a jaguar. I know there's a wolf. Who else can shift? Yeah, I don't remember others right now. But they also have magic, and in that magic, for example, Selena's magic is fire magic, and that is a very, very rare form of magic. Not many people have had it before, and it's just rare to see it in general. Rowan has wind magic, and I think a little bit of water. And then each Fae, I know Maeve, she can like read minds, she can dig around in people's brains, but each Fae have their additional magical ability. Would I recommend this book? Of course, absolutely. Do you think I'm not going to recommend this book? You're silly. Silly goose. Shame on you for thinking I would not recommend this book. Of course I'm going to recommend this. This is my favorite series of all time. But of course I will say at least pick up the previous two books, because you're not going to understand anything if you just pick up Heir of Fire. You're going to be like, what is going on? Why is this person important? Why is she called Alentia? Things like that. Nothing's going to make sense. Nothing's going to click. So yes, you have to pick up the previous two books. Who would I recommend this to? I would recommend this to either novice fantasy readers, if they're looking to get into a high fantasy series that can later lead to other more romantasy style series like A Court of Thorns and Roses, ACOTAR, or Crescent City, which is more along the lines of urban fantasy. This is a good introduction to fantasy itself, because it is high fantasy, but it isn't as complicated as other high fantasies are. The language is pretty straightforward. We don't really have that old-timey, the old English type writing or anything like that. Medieval doesn't really feel like that, but it also doesn't feel as modern as some of the other romantasy that we have nowadays. So yeah, I would say this is a good introductory series for anyone wanting to get into the fantasy genre or romantasy genre. Excellent choice to start with. Will I read the next book? of course, I am doing the reread for the entire Throne of Glass series. The next book in line is Queen of Shadows, but I think it is probably about time that I pick up Assassin's Blade. That way we can get the entire series in. Personally, I don't like reading Assassin's Blade first. I rather read it after Heir of Fire. I know the first time I read the series, I can't remember what order I read it, but it was not anywhere where it should have been read because I was confused where it was supposed to be. So I really am liking the fact that I'm picking it up after Heir of Fire before going into Queen of Shadows. I think that'll balance things out a little bit. It'll give us understanding of like Selena's story, what she tells Rowan that she's been through, things like that. So I really just think it'll make things line up nicely. Similar reads, so other similar books that I've read in the past to Throne of Glass, I would say Nevernight. That's a good place to start. This is a gritty, gory, revenge-based assassin story. RFMC, she is looking for revenge for those who took everything from her, which happened to be nobility, but it is much grittier, it's much gorier than Throne of Glass. She does fully embody the assassin aspect associated with her. Then we have Graceling, and Graceling is another assassin type FMC. She is gifted with the grace for killing, and she is also, because of this grace, because she's really, really good at killing, that's what the graces mean, that they like have these super abilities for whatever they can do that is considered a grace. Hers is killing, and she is her uncle's enforcer. Her uncle is the king, and she uncovers a secret, a dangerous one. Check it out. Another recommendation, I would say Grave Mercy, RFMC. She is also, it's kind of like Graceling. She has the gift of killing given to her by the god of death himself, and now she has to eliminate a target, but unfortunately for her, she has also fallen in love with this target. And last but not least, we have A Broken Blade. This is another good read, also assassin based. I believe she's half fae, and this FMC, she's known as the King's Blade, so she dispatches, kind of like Selena did for the king, being the king's champion. She dispatches the targets, but she also has to keep a promise that she made many years ago, but she has to save herself and realize that she has to save the kingdom, so there's a lot of political intrigue in there. Alright everyone, and we finally made it to the end of our review for Heir of Fire today by Sarah J. Maas. So if you enjoyed this, if you enjoyed listening to me yap about Heir of Fire, everything I thought about it, the synopsis, just everything in general, then please hit that like and subscribe button down below. That way you'll be brought back and we can go over Assassin's Blade and Queen of Shadows and just continue the series, and you'll even be brought back when I go over other series that I've started on here and have not made more videos for yet. So if you enjoyed being here, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you all next time. Bye.